Hello, my name is Norman Cartwright, and once again, I'm here today to discuss something with you that I find rather important myself, and I believe you will too. Today I'm here to discuss higher pay for law enforcement officers. And I believe this is relevant because when you have an intruder, you don't call your dentist. My credentials and my background include 8 years in the field of law enforcement. I've worked for 3 different agencies. One agency was closed and overtaken by the local sheriff's office. While at that agency, I was in a number of high-speed pursuits, a number of physical altercations resulting in numerous arrests. Luckily enough, knock on wood, none of them ever ended in my injury. And I had been involved in 2 officer-involved shootings at that agency. After leaving that agency when it closed and being taken over by the sheriff's department, I was also involved in a number of high-speed pursuits that resulted in multiple arrests, um, a number of incidents that involved physical disturbances, domestic disturbances, and all of the fun stuff that can turn violent at any moment, which usually does. I was also involved in approximately 4 officer-involved shootings where I had been shot at several times myself, as well as my zone partners and others. Um, the last officer-involved shooting that I can share with you was from 2009, and that one resulted in a multi-county, multi-jurisdictional high-speed pursuit, whereas the subject had shot at multiple police officers as well as bystanders and a school bus of all things. Needless to say, this individual uh, wound up succumbing to injuries that were self-sustained, meaning he was attempting suicide by cop and wound up shooting himself instead. Now, the reason that I'm here telling you about all this and the central idea for this speech is to raise the pay rate for law enforcement officers. Law enforcement officers in general put themselves in situations that most normal people would not want to. I say this because, and I can give the greatest explanation in the world, an individual hears gunshots, they're going to move away from that sound. A law enforcement officer runs towards it. So with that in mind, I'm here appealing to your sense of morals, stating why in one field do we pay individuals more than we would pay personal protection. As I said in the beginning, if you have an intruder in your home, you do not call your dentist. You're going to call 911 and you're going to hope they send you a comparable trained police officer that will get the job done. Another thing to consider that is in May of 2011, the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics reported that an average salary of $56,000 per year per police officer. However, this figure is highly dependent on your geographic location. Basically, what that means is larger cities, larger areas, higher tax-based areas have a higher pay rate than agencies in a smaller community, smaller settings, such as where we are. Now, I know nobody wants to hear, oh, higher taxes, but at the same time, you have to remember the old adage, you get what you pay for. Now, basically what that means to me is, as a homeowner and a property owner myself, I would much rather prefer to pay a little more in taxes if I knew I had better physical protection when I needed it. If I could pick up the phone, dial 911, and this be my emergencies helpline. Basically, it's a lifeline. You're calling for assistance. Not everybody dials 911. There are individuals that never dial that number a day in their life. However, when you do, it's a good thing to know somebody's going to respond. Which brings us back to the fact that a number of law enforcement officers are quitting and leaving the field due to lack of pay. When you take into consideration, such as the agency I'm currently working for, the starting pay breaks down to the equivalent of $10 an hour. You can basically make that flipping burgers at McDonald's. Another thing to consider is in law enforcement, the lowest 10% are paid less than $28,000 a year, while the highest 10% make over $85,000 a year. Once again, that breaks down to geographic location. I understand this, yes. But at the same time, you take into consideration what a physician makes. I'm not saying police officers deserve to be as paid as much as physicians. But you have an armed intruder in your home, you want somebody there. That's all I can say. In conclusion, yet again, I'm brought back to you get what you pay for. If you want a highly trained, highly motivated group of individuals, you have to pay them expectantly well for it. If not, you end up with reactive as opposed to proactive law enforcement. Reactive law enforcement is the individual who sits around eating the donuts, doing nothing, taking maybe their share of the odd reports that are called in, but never going out and finding things for themselves, never launching their own investigations. They'll do follow-ups, they'll do knock on doors, but they will not show the initiative to start their own investigations, their own cases. Versus a proactive law enforcement officer who's out there every day doing everything he can, stopping the speeders, grabbing shoplifters, speaking to the small children, making himself available to the community. Basically, in general, in closing, what you need to consider is what law enforcement officers put themselves in and how much they deserve compensated for that. Thank you very much.